Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. My name is Lene Green. I'm a neuro resource facilitator with Brain Injury Alliance of Iowa, and I am happy to present The Journey Continues, a telltale discussion about embracing career pathways after brain injury. And I am here with Miss Katie Woodward, who is going to talk to me about her process with employment after her surviving a brain injury. So, hello, Katie, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'd love to start by just letting everyone know a little bit about yourself. So if you could start with that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So about 3.5 years ago, I got a brain injury because I was helping my mom clean out her garden shed. And I thought I'd cleared the door frame and didn't, and came up and conked it pretty good. So I have an indent on the top of my head. So everyone's like, "Oh my God, you didn't hit that hard." I'm like, "Yeah, I have an indent." So, and then I went to On With Life in Ankeny, Iowa. It's a neuro rehab place. They have an inpatient and outpatient program, and I went in the outpatient concussion program for about 8.5 months because I couldn't do a lot. So I was very tired and dizzy a lot of the time. Um, Headaches. I mean, when I say a headache, I'm saying like a migraine times like 100. It was not like a little headache that you can take some ibuprofen for and it will go away.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, very off balance, walking and whatnot. So I needed a lot of help, and my memory was not very good either. So, and then after while I was at On With Life, we were trying to figure out what I was going to do because I have a sales and marketing and event planning background. So that requires a lot of energy and a lot of thinking.
Sure.
So we started I did a website while it was one of my homework assignments to see if I could still make one. And I made like my resume site to see if I could still even do it. And I did it with, time and whatnot. So we decided to start my own business called, at that time, it was Second Life Marketing. Now I have a business called Second Life DSM Agency, where it's a full service marketing agency. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride. So
That's great though. I love the story of how you got to your own business. So that's really cool. I'm curious, when you were going through recovery, what did your process look like? What did it consist of?
so I got in my accident at the end of September. And within that first week, I had all these weird symptoms come up, like after I'd done it, I just had, really bad headache, I mean, it was bad. I did get sick that day, but the reason I was back home was my dad got remarried. So I just thought it was from the night before and hitting my head and, everything. So I actually drove from Mason City back here to Des Moines. By the time I got to about Ames, my eyes started to itch, but I was like, oh, it's just from everything. I did go to the doctor that Tuesday because I had woken up that Monday and Tuesday with, I felt like I had 100-pound man sitting on my head. And I was extremely tired and just lightheaded and just did not feel good. So on that Tuesday, my roommate actually made me go to the doctor. She took me. And my doctor at that time just said I had a concussion. It'll go away within a few days. Well, by that Friday, I had a list of symptoms and I had called and was like, I need to get in immediately. Like, I got a weird things going on here. And, so that night I'd got a CT scan of my brain, of my head, and everything had been clear. But with concussions and brain injuries that I have, it's very hard to show up on a CT scan. So I went to a sports medicine doctor at Broadlawns because they deal with concussions every single day. And he was the one that diagnosed me with post-concussion syndrome. So it's prolonged concussion symptoms, which is a form of a brain injury. So yeah, and then I went through physical therapy for about 3 weeks because I couldn't move my neck. Like I would have to move my whole body because when I had hit the shed, obviously it hurt my neck so bad that I couldn't move it. So he was like, well, let's get you some movement in that neck first. So you're not having, maybe that will help with your dizziness. You're not having to move your whole body. But I was still having all the other symptoms. So that's when he referred me to On With Life. And that is one amazing place, but I hope to God no one ever has to go there, unless you're volunteering or touring or something like that.
Right.
But I mean, I had therapy 3 times a week. For the first 4.5 months, 5 months, it was physical and eye therapy. And then the last few months, it was speech therapy to help with my memory. And I was having problems eating too. I would start to cough after I would eat. So I'd literally have to eat like I was a toddler again. So, but it was lots of up and downs. So it was a hard recovery. I mean, I was a person before that would go 100 miles per hour and would hit that wall and then I would keep going kind of person.
Mhm.
And yeah, and after having my accident, it was like going like 15 miles per hour and I would hit that wall and go, God dang it, I can't move anymore. So yeah,
So it sounds like it was a pretty big transition for you. You were just kind of
very big. Yes.
so you talked about On With Life and you said it was a wonderful place. Um, and so, like you said, although, you hope no one has to ever have to go there. Um, the fact that you mentioned that it's a wonderful place. I'm curious, what went well with the staff and your experience, and not just with On With Life, but from working with your doctors to the transition to On With Life, what went well for you?
So I guess what went well for me is my doctor actually believed me. Well, the second doctor. I've learned with a lot of people that with this kind of form, the doctors don't believe them.
Mm.
And so I was very happy that my doctor actually believed me and was like, oh, yes, you do have this. And, was like, we're going to get you the right treatment. So when I went to On With Life, they don't call you a patient or anything. You're a person.
Mm.
So they call them people served. And they always call you by your first name. So my real name is Catherine, but I go by Katie, and they always would call me Katie. They wouldn't say Miss Woodward, or go by Catherine. And they tailor your plan to you on how you want to get back to life. I obviously have a sales, marketing, and event planning background, but I was very into like going out in the community and volunteering. And then also like I love country music. So going to, country concerts and going to, loud places, So it was okay, well, and they ask you one big goal that you want to succeed, and mine, everyone was like, that's a weird goal. But my goal was I wanted to go to, it used to be called Tree Town. It's a country music festival in Forest City, Iowa. My hometown's Mason City. So, and I had gone there for the past 6 years. Like I had not missed 1 year. And I was like, I'm not going to miss it. Just because I have this does not mean anything. And it was always Memorial Day weekend. So they were like, okay, like if that's what your goal is, then let's make that happen, So, and I it's 3 days, but my goal was I just wanted to make one day. I was like, if I can make all 3 days, great. But if I can just make one day, that would be great. And I did make it there with some accommodations, I had, the earplugs and, I had sunglasses on. So, sometimes the lights and stuff from, the stage and whatnot. So, and I would go sit in the car for a few minutes and then come back, and whatnot. So, and my mom, huge, I mean, I wouldn't be here without my mom. But she would be like, okay, do we need to go back to the car and just sit for a few minutes, out of the noise, whatnot? I was like, nope, I'm good. Like I knew my limits at that time, and learning my limits was very hard.
But it's awesome that you learned them. Like I love hearing that. You went to live your best life, but you did it with accommodations and it was still amazing,
Yep. And so, and with On with Life, that was, okay. Like, if that's your goal, then we're gonna make that happen, because that they want you to get back on with life, Yeah, it might be a little different, and we always say this is my new normal,
Mhm.
because it is. I mean, yeah. So,
So did you have any challenges along the way? Um, and not necessarily something that you felt like that you overcame them, or even something that you still feel like you're working on. Were there any challenges during that process for you?
oh, so many. I mean, obviously just dealing with it, I mean, within a 30 seconds, my life changed totally in a 180 direction, I was always that on the go person, and then all of a sudden I had to not be on that go person. So trying to figure out just how to do that, but like I couldn't even do my own laundry. I had to have, and I'm one of those people that I don't like to ask for help. I'm a very independent person.
Or-
And so asking for help was it still is one of my biggest challenges. Like, I'm like, nope, I can do it. Nope. And then I realize I can't and I get myself in trouble. So, um, but and just everyday life was hard sometimes, just getting out of bed. I'd be like, okay, what am I going to get out of bed for today? Hoo I get to sit on the couch and watch more TV, kind of thing. So we actually kind of made me like on our refrigerator, we actually made me like a daily schedule. So I would be like, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to feed. So I had a dog and then my roommate had a dog. So, my chore was to take care of the dogs in the morning, to make the coffee, to, like kind of just try to get in a normal routine again. And like my dog had diabetes. So it was, okay, making sure I give Chuck his medicine each morning, so we kind of got me more in a, okay, something to wake up to, not just, okay, I'm going to sit here and watch TV again. I mean, I did do that a lot, but, and I mean, I probably overdid it a little bit on my therapy. So obviously I had homework to do from On with Life and, um, to do during the days and whatnot, but I would overdo, I would be like, okay, so I would go and like, I got a lot of those, like, it was kind of funny, those like kindergarten, preschool books,
Mhm.
just to keep my mind going. And I mean, it sometimes was embarrassing to be like, I'm doing my homework, but they said that actually helped more because it was keeping my mind going. I
Mhm.
wasn't just sitting there letting my mind go crazy because I have anxiety and depression before my anxiety, my accident. And then after my accident, obviously it went through the roof. And,
Mhm.
And so I had a lot of fight and flight modes.
Sure.
It was either, okay, I'm going to fly, I'm going to just run, or I'm going to actually fight this. And it was a lot of times that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I was, even if I had a negative attitude that day, obviously my support system, my roommate would be like, okay, well, let's talk through that, or when I would go to On With Life and I'd be like, I really don't want to be here today. They'd be like, okay, go home. They were like, okay, we don't, if you aren't in the mindset that you want to get better, then this therapy is not going to work,
Mm.
because it is a lot of your mindset too, and if you aren't in the mindset to do anything that day, then that therapy is not going to help because you're not putting your 100% effort in it. And then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm here anyway, so I guess I'll do it. And those were always my hardest days. And I would get so mad at them. I'd be like, you know, I didn't want to be here today. And they're like, well, that's why we did it, and they were always just very personable at On With Life, having, obviously having this, I had no filter. So if I got really upset or angry, things would just come out of my mouth, and half the time it was not very nice. And, or I would swear, or I would say something, and they would just be, sometimes they would just giggle and go, okay. And they would just keep moving.
Mm.
They like wouldn't get mad at me, for something I did or said wrong, and I mean, you never did anything wrong. It was okay. Well, we didn't do the best on that one. So let's try it again. Or
Mm.
why don't we take a break for a few minutes? It wasn't, you did that wrong. Now we have to redo it again. There was never anything like that. So, I mean, which I loved, because and they kind of geared your how you like to know how your progress is going. Like, you can tell me I'm doing a great job, but I'd be like, okay, I don't see it though. So they would do your testing, and they would show it on a paper.
Mm.
This is how you started and this is where you are now. And that's how I got excited about my recovery and how I knew I was actually progressing. Is living in your body every single day, you don't know, sometimes you don't know, like, if you're doing better, but that paper, okay, hey, you did this many, shin tucks at the beginning, now you're at this many. I'd be like, those aren't my favorite things either. Like, so, that was how they made me feel important. It was just, and remembering like what you talked about the day, the time before.
Mm. What I really appreciate about, everything that you mentioned was, I think the underlying theme, which is it's really about support
Yes.
and making sure that there is the best support possible for you as a survivor going through recovery, and to feel better, and then to learn about your new normal. And so I really love that there were a variety of supports for you to help you see that growth and that progress. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to switch over to kind of look at employment now. So I'm curious. So you mentioned that you had your degree and you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do, and now you do run your own business. But I'm curious, before you got to the point of having your own company, um, did you look for work at first? Was there a job search process for you? And so I'm just curious, how did that go for you at first?
Yeah. So, I mean, before even, the whole website stuff, we, obviously went and tried some job interviews and whatnot. And, obviously I was always very upfront with them because I've been in the recruiting, hiring, HR position, and, training those people and whatnot. And I didn't want them to, offer me a position and then find out I couldn't do it, 3-4 weeks in after all that training and everything that they spent and whatnot. So always their question was, well, can you do this job? And I was like, I have no clue, but let's find out and see. Yeah, there might be, yeah, I'm going to have accommodations, the computer, the lights, and, yeah, I might still wake up having, a bad day and whatnot that I need to stay home. Or being more flexible with remote working. I mean, this was way before COVID. So, they were like, remote working? Like, no, we don't do that, and now everyone's doing it. But so I did, and I just would get frustrated. I was just like, oh, like I want to be back to normal. Like, I was a sales coordinator at a hotel, and I thought, well, okay, there was a position I applied for as a sales coordinator because with my background and whatnot, I couldn't go back to Hy-Vee and work as a sacker. I just would felt horrible about myself, and even, you know, and after a while, I did get a part-time job as a hostess at a Mandarin Grill. But the only reason I got that position or that job was I knew the owner's daughter. So, it was during lunchtime, and I was like, I can handle that. It's, 11 to 1. It's 2 hours. All I have to do is hand out a menu, being a hostess.
Mhm.
But still, in the back of my mind, I was just like, really? Like, I went from being, a national sales assistant at a TV station to a hostess.
Hmm. So you knew.
And it, and I was just like,
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's a job. It's gonna pay the bills a little bit, but still, like it just made my self-esteem just go down because I was like here I was, being a national sales assistant at a TV station, dealing with $1 million deals, and here I am now dealing with menus.
Hmm.
you know? And like people would come in that I used to know, and I would actually run to the back because I didn't want them to see me
Hmm.
because I was like, they're going to wonder, well, why is she a hostess at a restaurant during lunchtime? you
Hmm.
know? And at that time, I still was kind of uncomfortable about talking what had happened. I was slowly starting to get into, what had happened and getting more comfortable talking about it and whatnot. But I was still like, I still was that persona of, okay, why is she, doing this when she was doing this?
Hmm.
So, I mean, I did leave that position. Just there was some, it just, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like they were all wonderful and whatnot, but it was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Hmm.
And I had got a sinus infection. And when I get sick, it's even worse now because, when you get a sinus infection, obviously that's all through your head and your nose and stuff. So your head obviously
Yeah.
lasts a little bit longer for me. So, and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to get better. So that was one reason I did leave there was because I got a sinus infection.
Right. Okay. Well, so it sounds like you went through the typical process of applying for jobs, trying it out, finding out it doesn't work, and then you got to a space where at least it sounded like you were starting to feel discouraged because you knew what you could do, and then here you are, and there were moments of embarrassment, and those sorts of things that kind of um, made you, kind of run and hide when you saw people you knew, and you knew that you were deserving of more, and you
Yeah.
wanted more. So,
Mhm.
did you at some point decide to work with any agencies to kind of help you explore employment or self-employment at all?
I didn't because I really didn't know that there were programs out there. So, I mean, right after I left, when I was going through Iowa Life at the end, I was going through Iowa Workforce Development and was meeting with a lady there. But since my background was so different, it was harder for her to be like, okay, like I remember I did a job fair
Mm.
um, at Hy-Vee Center, and they had, a whole bunch of people. It was there for like recruiting and different things. And they had, had us in the, front lobby area. And everyone else was like, I'm hiring, like I'm looking for a forklifting job. I'm looking for, a cashier's job. And then here I am, and I'm like, I'm looking for a sales, marketing, or event planning job. So with my background, it was harder for her because she was like, I'm not used to dealing with someone with such a different background.
Mm.
So I kind of was like, okay, well, I mean, I got a lot of contacts that day and it made me feel good
Okay.
and whatnot. And some of those contacts I still use today, if I have a question or whatnot. So, but it's also, I kind of felt like, do I, do I really belong here? Kind of thing. It was like, I felt very out of place again,
Mm. Yeah.
because it wasn't tailored to anything I was doing,
Mm.
and I was like, okay, well, I'm the oddball out again,
Mm.
and so, and that kind of made me feel discouraged. I was like, am I ever going to find something that's going to make me feel better again? Like
Mm.
feel better about myself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. That's it's awesome that you said that you felt discouraged, because I was going to ask, do you think that the experience at Iowa Workforce Development discouraged you from trying to look for other agencies that may provide some assistance?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm kind of, and like I said, earlier, it's really hard to ask for help from me, and, so just reaching out to them was like a huge thing for me, because Animal Life was like, no, we're not going to reach out for you. You need to reach out.
Mhm.
Because that was part of my therapy too, was asking for help when I needed it.
Okay.
And that was and I've been going to a mental health counselor too, and that was part of my therapy too, was I had to do these things, not no one else, not my mom, not anyone else. I had to. And then when I got discouraged, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna figure this out on my own, kind of thing. Like
And
I always do. Like I was like, no, like I'll do this on my own. And yeah.
so at that point, is that when you got the idea of self-employment?
Yeah, that was kind of when I was like, okay, well, that was when we started doing the website, and I was like, I enjoyed it, and I was like, I could do this. So that's when we were like, why don't you just start your own business now? And I only did websites and virtual assistant work at that time because I knew I could handle it. I could do it from home. I didn't have to go out and get embarrassed or, and at that time I was still kind of like, if I got a symptom or whatnot, and I was out in public, I would be like, oh my God, what are people going to think? Because like when I got dizzy, it wasn't, I got dizzy and I fell. I would sway back and forth like I was drunk.
Okay.
And like my words would slur and, I would stumble.
Mhm.
So it was like I was drunk, not that I need to sit down or rest, So that was another thing was, okay, if I'm out in public and I get something and I don't have if I didn't have my support there, my roommate or my mom or my friend, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
So that was, one reason we did start my first business was because it was easier,
Sure.
a lot easier.
Okay. So it sounds like then the self-employment journey was a good thing to try out.
Yeah.
And as you started going down that journey, I would love to know, did you notice any frustrations as you were transitioning into self-employment, or were there any challenges that you were experiencing when you started that process?
I didn't even know where to begin. I never knew I was going to be a business owner. You know, I was like, never thought I would be one. So I didn't even know like where to begin. So I was just like, I'm just going to make a Facebook page and make a website. And there we go. That's all I need to do. Right.
Mhm.
And I was like, nope. So, so it was just getting started, was one of my biggest challenges. And then actually reaching out to people saying, hey, this is what I do. Would you be interested in my services? Different things like that. So, I mean, I had a few websites, but they were all like friends' websites, for like their businesses.
Okay.
Or I had a friend recommend me to, he was an author and he would write columns for like the Medium, stuff like that. He was my first virtual assistant client. And he was probably the best first client ever because
Wow.
he was very understanding. He would send me a list and say, okay, can you do this? I'd be like, yep. I'd be like, when do you need it done by? He's like, let's do 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks he would give me a new list. So he gave me enough time to be able to do it and still go to therapy and do everything else I needed to do. So, but then it was still, reaching that, asking people, hey, this is what I do. And I kind of had one of those come to Jesus moments in the middle of COVID because it was, August of beginning of COVID. And I would be like, why ain't I reaching out to people?
Mm,
Like everyone's going to online. What's going on? And
mm,
I kind of had to sit there and think about it. And it was in my mind, it was still a recovery project. It wasn't a business.
mm.
It was what I was doing to keep my mind busy and to make a little bit of money here and there kind of thing. So that's when actually I was like, okay, I'm going to put that in the recovery section of my, recovery. And I'm going to start a new business and I'm going to like officially make it a business, get all the paperwork that you need to make it official, and that's what I did. I started Second Life DSM agency, which is a full service marketing agency. And we do event planning and, the virtual assistant work. So everything that I like to do, but like it's a real business. Like I have a tax ID number and, I have QuickBooks and, everything and like business cards. And like actually I go out and, say this is my business. So I think that between that, in my mindset, my old one was just, that's what kept me busy. That's, it's recovery. And, this is an actual business. This is how I make my money. This is what makes me happy. So, but it's still not easy.
I know. I've heard running your own business is that it can be tough, but it's definitely rewarding.
It is.
So I'm curious then, you had your recovery business and now you have your business.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing that you are most proud about looking back on going from the recovery process to not knowing quite sure how to get started with your own business, but doing that recognizing it for what it was in that moment, and then transitioning to something new. What are you most proud of?
I think that I actually did it. So I'm kind of one of those people that I have all these amazing ideas in my head, but actually doing them
Yeah.
is hard for me. Like I have, like a journal that I'm like, I want to do this, this, and this. And they stay in that journal or they stay in my head. I don't actually
Same.
do them. And I've always been that kind of person. But actually doing it and saying, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. And, this is what I do. I mean, I've always been kind of one of those people that I always want to make everyone proud of me,
Mm.
and in my mind, I was like, will a business owner though really make anyone proud of me? I was like, yeah, because I'm a business owner. Like, how many times do you say that's a cool job that you're a business owner?
Mm.
And I was like, oh yeah, but then obviously through therapy and whatnot, my therapist was like, but is that going to make you happy? I was like, most days, you know,
Yeah.
like most days it makes me happy. Not when I have to do the invoices and all the accounting and whatnot. I just, hire out for that now because I don't like to do it. The dog does it now. She's my office manager. So,
Aw.
but I think just actually doing it, and making it a everyday thing.
Mm.
This is my job. Yeah, now I do have, a part-time job, but it's still doing everything I like to do. She just is nice and is letting me have the W-2 on my record so I can, get housing easier and stuff like that. I mean, it was just, we were talking and she was like, well, why don't I just make you a assistant manager employee and then it'll be easier for you to get services that you need. So you're not having to provide all those fun records for being a self-employee because sometimes that's another challenge being
Sure.
your own business owner is getting the services and then they're like, oh, you're a business owner? Now we're going to need this, this, and this, and this. And I'm like, do I even have those?
Yeah.
Like, then I have to go, okay. And so then I get frustrated and I'm like, nope, I'm done. Like, I guess I really don't need this. And then I walk away from it because I get frustrated or I get overwhelmed. And then I'm like, nope, it's just too much of work and I don't have time for it. And then I'm like, and then, 6 months down the road, I'm like, maybe I should have done that,
Mm.
So yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just love your whole story, and just how, regardless of the challenges, you still made a decision to be where you are now. And I think it's really cool. And you know, based on your experiences, I'd love to know if you could give advice to any case manager or um, any agencies or organizations that could be watching this. If you could give them any advice when it comes to working with brain injury survivors, what advice would you give them?
I would say get more involved in the community so people actually know that these services are there. I mean, being, obviously a business owner and whatnot now, you know, the only reason I know about these services now is because Laura from a different organization had tagged me in a post about Iowa DAPC and was like, you need to get a part of this. And that was the only reason I learned about all these services that I should have been in 3 years ago,
Hmm.
and but I didn't know anything about these, and so getting out in the community, and maybe partnering with, doing maybe not a better job. I don't want to use that word, but making sure that you are partners with On With Life or any, concussion programs here in Des Moines, making sure you have that partnership with them so they can say, hey, here's a referral. I'm going to get you in touch with this person so you can continue on after here.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
after obviously, I know Life does an amazing job and whatnot, but they can only go so far, once you're done with their program,
Mhm.
they can't handhold you and say, okay, now, this is your next steps after us,
Yeah.
so having that organization say, hey, we'll take over here from now would have been amazing. And my mom, love her to death, but I would not have to, rely on my mom in my support system so much afterwards. I was still relying heavily on my roommate and my friends and whatnot to be like, okay, what can I do next? Or, having to get that job at Mandarin Girl, the only reason I got it was because of a friend,
Mhm.
you know, so making sure you're out in the community, join a chamber. West Des Moines Chamber is amazing. They are very big in the advocating side, so we know that you guys are out there. Like if I would have known the services I'm getting now were out there 3 years ago, I would have definitely done them.
Mm.
If it would have helped me, just with the support side, it's always nice to have that support. So I'm not having to rely, so they're not having to rely so much on their, parents, their friends. I love my friends to death, but they're probably tired of hearing me complain sometimes, about, well, this hurts today, or this didn't go how I wanted it to, or I wish there was a program like this. I wish I had a case manager 3 years ago so I would been able to call someone and say, hey, this is going on. Is this right? Is this wrong? Do I need to call someone? Am I dying kind of thing, And so we wouldn't have to learn so much. I've learned a lot about insurance and everything else. And just, I really didn't want to have to learn about all that stuff.
That's totally fair. I wouldn't either. So I understand that one. So to conclude this conversation, which I am so thankful that we were able to talk, like this has been a really eye-opening um, chat today, and I appreciate you sharing your journey. I have one last question for you. If you could give brain injury survivors any advice, though, especially when it comes to wanting to go back to work, what's one thing that you would tell them?
Don't give up.
Mm.
Just when I was at On With Life, there was a slave swimming and whatnot in their pool. And I remember I was out in the hallway doing one of my therapies. I think it was like kickboxing or something because it took my stress out. I heard the lady say to the other person served was just keep swimming. So I always have that in the back of my head. So that's actually my saying, my quote or modem or whatever it is for my business is just keep swimming.
Mm.
Don't give up, ask for that help. Do some research and, find an organization that can help you. I know it's not easy to ask for help, but ask for that help and take the help.
Yeah,
Don't think you can do it all on your own because you can't. You need that support of the people that actually understand the systems and how to do the systems and things like that. They understand those paperworks better than you do.
that's true. That's great advice. Great advice. Katie, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Yeah, no problem.
Alrighty. we'll see if we have some Q&A follow-up here, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good.